Malak v'sakin. If someone did malika with a sakin, of course that's not good. It's going to be puzzle. Mitama begodim abesa blia. That's called an avela. Zok Rashi, Molak oiv kochim b'sakin nevela. De'ein malika ela b'tzipar. Fragt Gemara vi amrit ein shchita loif min If you hold a knife doesn't need shchita anyway, nehi nami. The chitover le'shedra umaf. Not an avela, it's only a treifa. Tahani lo sakin litahara midei nevela. After it becomes a treifa, because the shedra and the mafrekas were severed, then the knife will cut the simonim perfectly. So that's a shchita on an item. That's a shchita on an item that is a davar treifa. But why would it be an avela? Why does the Braysh say mitama begodim abesa blia? Zok to Gemara, who the Amar Kaitana? He holds. Rashi says, who are we referring to by who? Rabbi Yitzchak ben Pinchas to Amar. So Rabbi Yitzchak ben Pinchas is the one who told us on Amud Beis ain't shchita life in Torah. He will not be consistent with this brisa that says that a oif that was not slaughtered properly is an avela. He in fact holds it would not be an avela. Exactly the way the Gemara explained, it's like he shechted a treifa. Tanya we learned Rabbi Lezer Kappa or Rebbe Omer, Ma Talmud Loimer. Why Vatar Yachtov Yechlenu? What is the pasuk trying to? Why is the Torah comparing any shchita of an animal to a tzvi and ayil? V'chimala madu mitzvi v'ayil meyata harezeh balulamei. The tzvi and ayil was supposed to be teaching us something about our subject matter because the Torah says katzvi v'chayil. We're comparing our meat to tzvi v'chayil. Pashas, this pasuk is speaking to psulei hamatoshim sheniftu, that you're allowed to eat it in shechlet like a tzvi and ayil. But lemaisa, we're going to end up having a reciprocal limud from the behemoths of psulei mikdoshin back to tzvi and ayil. It came to teach, but it ended up learning. Just like psulei mikdoshin surely requires shchita, they're behemoths. Av tzvi v'ayil, so too a tzvi and ayil b'shchita. And then Rabbi Lezer HaKapor continues to say, "V'oif ein lo shchita midivrei Torah ela midivrei seifrim." So Rabbi Lezer HaKapor says beferish that ein shchita lo'oif min Torah ela midivrei seifrim. That would be consistent with Rabbi Yitzchak ben Pinchas, and according to him, if you made malika with a sakin, it should be a treifa, not an avela. I just don't understand physically how you would do that, because when you puncture the back of the neck of a bird with your thumbnail, so you can go straight in without cutting the bus on either side. But if you're slicing back and forth, how are you going to cut through the back of the neck and the shed without cutting by bus? Unless you need to cut around on the front too. I'm not sure exactly how you would do it. But the truth is, I don't know how to do malika either, so it's not like there's any part of it I do understand how to do. Zok Gemara man Tana the Polagalei the Rabbi Lezer ben HaKapor. Who is the Tana who holds yesh shchita la'oif min Torah, and without shchita it will be an avela. Without a proper shchita it will be an avela, like we saw on top. If you made malika with a sakin, the bird is an avela saif tahar. Rabbi, it's the shita of Rabbi. The Tanya Rabbi Omer. It says v'zavachta kasher tzivisicha. So the pasuk says kiyirchak lumcha mokai mashivcha Hashem alecha chalosam shmoisham. When you live far away from the Beis Hamikdash, you cannot bring karbonis. V'zavachta mi b'karcha v'tzoincha ashenosh Hashem lecha. But it says v'zavachta. You have to do a zvicha. V'lamech netztav Moshe ala veshet v'ala kona v'al roiv echad ba'oif v'al roiv shnayim b'behema. Exactly how you see all this from v'zavachta, I don't know. But Klor Rebbe is saying that it is a deraisa. As Rashi says, Roy Bechad, Lav Mikro Yalef. We're not really learning from the word Vizavachta. El Kaloim Mahlicha Shchita Nitztava, Rebbe is just saying that we were Nitztava on the Hilcha Shchita, even the Hilcha Shchita of a oif that requires one simon. So that's how you know that he holds yes shechita life in the Torah, although we don't know exactly what the limud is.
Doesn't the pasuk specifically talk about Bakar and Sain and not Oif?
So I think that's why Rashi points out that we're not learning from this pasuk. We're learning it from from what Rabbi said, Melamed, that we were taught halacha l'Moshe Sinai about all these halachas. So it's just from the words of Rabbi in the Brisa. It's not Rabbi's not learning it from the pasuk. Rabbi used those words in the pasuk as a springboard to discuss Hilchos Shechita and to say that all the different types of shchitos we were in Itztava through at least the halacha l'Moshe Sinai.
That makes it a derisa, right?
Yes, it makes it. Yes,
as opposed to the Mandiyama where it says that it's from the Seifrim, which would
correct.
make it a derabana.
Correct.
Okay, just want to clear
And
that
even
up.
halacha l'Moshe Sinai, halacha l'Moshe Sinai, although it's a deraisa, there are differences between a full deraisa that's mentioned in the Torah and halacha l'Moshe Sinai. And I believe one of the distinctions is I don't think you could make a kal v'chomer from halacha l'Moshe Sinai. You can only make a kal v'chomer from something that's written in the Torah. But I believe there are other distinctions as well. So it's not on the same level as if it was written mefarish in the pasuk. So you were saying something. So the question is, which of the two simonim is the designated one, to be shechted? Itmar of Nachman Omar, oy vesher oy kana. There is no designate. Any simon of the two simonim that are shechted would be valid. Rav Ada bar Ava Omar, veshet v'loy kana. It's dafka the veshet. Veshet is not the windpipe. Veshet is the food pipe, I believe, and that is the I think it's called the esophagus. Rav Nachman Amar.
I don't know what chicken has an esophagus, but yeah.
Rav Nachman Amar. What does the article say? Oh, very good. That's where I got it from. Rav Nachman Amar. Oy veshet, oy kana. You have a choice, either the veshet of the kana. So we have a machlokes. Is it dafka the veshet, or is it either one? Oy veshet, oy kana. Echad katani. Echad koldu. I think I skipped some words. Right. Itmar Nachman Amar Oy Veshet Oykana. Rav Ada Amar Veshet V'Loykana. Rav Nachman Amar Oy Veshet Oykana Echad Katani. Echad Koldu. Either one. Rav Ada Amar Veshet V'Loykana My Echad Miyuchad. Rashi says Veshet is Miyuchad Shabisimanemu. Why is it Miyuchad Shabisimanem? Shechios Habeima Tali Boy. The chiyus of the beima is totally in the Veshet, not in the Kana. How do you see? The nikav b'mashu, the nekav mashu mitrafa. We know even if there's a tiny pinhole in the veshet, it makes the animal treifa. Vilukana ad the misik ruba. The kana wouldn't be treifa if it was damaged until right of the kana was damaged. So clearly, you see that the veshet is a lot more sensitive to the life of the animal. The wind?
Yeah, the windpipe.
The windpipe would be more important. So, I guess we'd have to understand the anatomy. I mean, even if his windpipe is damaged, it's like a stoma. No, wouldn't it be like people who breathe through their chest, right? People who breathe through their chest, the whole top of their kana is not even in the parsha, right? There are people who breathe through their chest. There are people who actually smoke through their chest. I don't know if you're aware of that. There are people who never have a stoma, and they breathe through their chest, and they'll actually smoke from there. They'll actually put a cigarette there. Zog the Gemara, Meizvei. Shachat es aveshet v'achakach nishmita hagargeres. What if someone shechted the veshet, and after that the gargeres was nishmita, which would render a oiv treifa kshera? Why? Because the animal was dead already by the time the tarfus occurred. What about nishmita hagargeres? So it became treifa first. The achach shachat es aveshet. So then it's psula because you shechted an animal that was a treifa. What about shachat es aveshet? V'nimtzas gargeres shemuta ve'ein yedea im kodim shchita nishmita im lachar shchita nishmita. You have a suffix. So zokti raisa zeh haya maisa. This actually occurred. The Amora, they said, and this will chazer over what we learned in the first parak, that kol suffix b'shchita psula. Because behema b'chayos b'cheskas Israel medes achi yivad alach b'aman ishchada. Now it's interesting. All of the examples of shechting one and finding a psul in the other one were always consistent with the veshet that was shechted. Why didn't the brisa switch it up a little bit and mention a scenario where the kana was shechted? Vilu shchita begageres loikatani. So wouldn't that be a raya that shchita begageres is not valid? So if Rashi, the ilu shchita begageres loikatani, the name of shachat gargeres v'achach nishvat aveshet ksherer. Right? You could have said it that way. Alma, the fact that the Tan insists on always saying shachat aveshet, alma le miskasher bekana luchudei. We see that shecht in the kana would not have been enough. So no, that's not a raya. You know why it always picks the case of shechting the veshet and nishvat gargeres? Mishum der gargeres avida lishtamute, because that's a common occurrence. It's a common occurrence where the veshet, where the kana would be dislodged, but it doesn't happen by the veshet. So the reason why it happens shchita beveshet is not because shchita is better than veshet. It's really focusing on chapping on nishmita by the gargeres. So if you have nishmita by the gargeres, by default or by process of elimination, the simon that was shechted would have had to be the veshet. Correct. I don't know, maybe different languages. I'm not sure. Mishum de gageres avidel ishtemute lahachi nakat shchita beveshet v'ashmata v'gageres. It's also always keeping confused because I'm always getting confused which one it is. Okay, Tashma. Shachat. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's gonna help. Next time I see gageres, I'm still not gonna know. Tashma shachat shnei chatzai simonim. What if you shechted two simonim, but exactly half of the simonim? Zokt Rashi right off the bat. It's going to be possible. The chamoy deloy ovid midi dami. It's like you didn't shecht. The zil hacha lekeshiyura. Go to one simon, there's no shear. The zil hacha lekeshiyura. So shachat shnei chatzai simonim by psula. The ain't tzarich lemer bebehema, and surely bebehema where you have to shecht roiv two simonim. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, but there's an additional requirement. The es haverid. So once again, what does Rabbi Yehuda say? It's the veshet that's required, not the kana. So you have a raya to Rav Adabar Ava, right? Rav Adabar was the one who said it has to be v'dafka the veshet. So no, the reason why Rabbi Yehuda chaps on the veshet is mishum the veshet samach levriden. It's most common that someone will shech the veshet because it's right near the vriden, and since Rabbi Yehuda requires that the vriden are severed, it's likely that if he's going to shech the one simon, he's going to shech the veshet.
It could be you can't even shech the veshet without cutting the vegan.
It would be hard.
Right.
Mishum the veshet samach levriden naket le umiu hu adin lekana. Haveshet have been kana lemafrekas. We know that if you're shechting from the tzavar from the front, the first thing that you encounter is the kana, and then after behind the kana is the veshet, and behind the veshet is the mafrekas, is the actual backbone. For a behema, you don't have to cut the reading. No, for a behema, you don't have to cut the reading. Only for a knife.
But I'm saying, we know that because we've seen pictures that it's lined up.
If you look at pictures for a bird, you see that as well.
Same thing.
Yeah, same thing. Tashma. Shachat chatzi gageres. Shachat chatzi gageres. What if you shechted half the gageres? Vishaha k'dei shchita acheres. And you waited. So therefore, if cutting half was a good shchita, no problem. You finished already. But if cutting half is not considered a shchita, and it's not treif, because roiv the gargeres had not yet been punctured, so now you're standing right before the shchita. And therefore, v'gomar, shchita s'ksheira. It's a perfectly. My love, ba'oif. What's this brayso talking about? Shachat chatzi gageres, and then v'gomar, we're talking about the gageres itself. You shechted half of it, and then you finished it, so you properly shechted the oif. So my lab wife, the pashtus is that this brayso is referring to even a bird. Well, my gomer, what is the gomer shechtasai? It would mean gomer legageres. All he finished up was shechting the roiv of the gageres. So you have a raya that for shchitas anoy you could shecht only the gageres to raya Rab Nachman. So gomer loy bebehema. This brayso of shachat chatzi gageres is talking about a behema. My gomer l'shchita kula. So I'm sorry. Well, you cut half the gargeres, and then You stopped. And then 10 minutes later, you shech the other half with the veshet. So the shechita was the second cutting, because the first cutting was nothing. I'm sorry? Is it what? That's if you're in the middle of a shechita. But you weren't shechting. Cutting half the galgaris is not shechting. You're just making the animal treif. You're injuring the animal. But the shechita would have begun from the process where you cross the halfway mark of the kana, and you also cut the veshet. Zog to Gemara. Rashi directly addresses Moti's concern, because if you look at Rashi, V'shabak Shera, so Rashi asks the kasha, you're middle of the shechita. So Rashi mishum the chatzi gageres lav haschol shechita hi shafilu nikra chetzoy lo mitref avahach. So you haven't paused in the middle of the shechita. The Gemara says lo bebehema claimer ha afilu bebehema ka'amar. This brisa even applies to a behema. The hagomra lava gageres koi. Finishing the shechita wasn't just referring to cutting the gageres. Ela akula shechita koi means you finished the whole shechita, meaning you cut the veshet as well. Tashma, you had an animal that was not a treifa, half of its kana was pogum. And all he did was he passed the finish line. He shechted a mashu, the gomrai, the lach is shchitas like sheira. So frank the Gemara, my laboy, umay gomrai lakana. Dr. Gemara, no, bebehema umay gomrai laveshet. The same shackle of times before. The gomrai, but Rashi here says why you think here it's referring to Vidavku tonight. So kedaitach the gomrai bahachi. He finished it with that he passed the halfway mark. Bahai koshu shari nishchat haroiv. The pegima kamaisa kishleim adamia. The animal is considered a shalom. It's not a treifa yet. Bahika roiv come on. So therefore, in this kasha, there's a havamina that it does mean the kana because it says gomroi. Gomroi lebeshet vachi gomroi. Bahai shalav koshu davale ruba. It would be a kosher shchita for a behemoth. Gewaltig. Zog Gemara back to Tashma. Ketet moilkin chatasai. How do you do melika on the chatasai, which only requires the severing of one simon? The halach is choiteich shedra umafrekes beloy roi basar. You sever the shedra and the mafrekes without roi basar, so the animal's still alive. Ad shemagia leveshet oy lekana, until you reach either the veshet or the kana. Higia leveshet oy lekana choiteich simon echad v'roi basar imay. Uba oyla, but if it's oyla soif, we learned because of the havdalah, you have to sever both simonim. Shnayim oy roi shnayim. Zok Gemara Tiyufta, the Rav Ada bar Abba Tiyufta. Here, Rav Ada bar Abba is completely augishlogen because it's a checkmate. You clearly see that either simon that you sever during the slaughtering of a chatas ha'oif will be a kosher malika. You'd have to maneuver your nail to get around it. I'm not sure how that would be done. The whole thing is a pretty skillful thing. Yeah. Usually, if you're coming from the back, you're going to encounter the veshet first. Zok to Gemara. Toshma, my Allah kidikamrit. What do you mean, my Allah? You just brought me a tiyufta, so you've just proven that either simon is good to shech. No, it's not really a tiyufta. Dilma shiny hasam the ika shedra umafrekas. Maybe there, since you've already severed the shedra and the mafrekas, there severing either simon will kill the bird. But in a regular shchita where you are puncturing first the kana or the veshet, there maybe Rav Ada bar Abba is right. You have to shech the veshet first. We need another right. The Hubar Abza, there was this goose, the Hava Bay Rava. It was by Rava's house. I guess he was passing to the Shaila. Also, Kimasmis Kue Doma. Zok Rashi, it was Maluchlach Tzavore Bedam, meaning this goose's neck was ripped open, the animal was injured. Shenikrit Tzavore, and now Rava has to check to see, is this a kosher or bird? The Torah Livdek B'Simanim, now that the bird is injured by his neck, now it's important that we check to see if the Simanim were severed. Shema Nifstak Akana, Ainika Veveshet. Rashi gets into a whole discussion of Suffolk Drusa, which is the subject of a machlokes, the Rashi and Tosfos or the Riva and Tosfos. A drusa means if there's certain animals that if they attack and they put their nails into an animal, it like poisons the animal, and that's what makes it a treifa. Zok Rashi, that's not what this discussion here is about. We're just focused on a simple clean cut. So Omar Rava was pondering, hey Chanavit, how do we deal with this? How am I going to check? How am I going to check this bird to see if it's a treifa or not? Nishchete v'hader nifdike. If you're going to suggest that I should check it first and then boidik to see what condition the simanim are, v'hader nifdike l'mayla mebeis shchita ulamata, meaning the actual cut, you don't know what happened in the place of the cut, but you can at least tear the bird open and examine the kan and the veshet above the cut and below the cut. The problem is dilma b'makim nekev kashachit. Maybe there was a pinhole in the veshet, and that's exactly where his knife sliced through, and now you won't see that pinhole, but it's really a treifa. Nivdekei v'hader nishchatei. If you want to suggest that he should check it while it's alive, Omar Rabba said, veshet ein lo b'dika mi b'chutz ela mi b'fnim. The veshet is made up of two membranes. The outer membrane is red, and the inner membrane is white. A pinhole would not be noticeable on the out because the pinhole would develop a reddish color. But if you're checking the veshet from the inside, so you turn it inside out, there you would see the red speck, which would indicate that it was punctured. That would be impossible to do while the animal was alive. The tipa stam nichneses loibe b'fnim b'nekev. When it's punctured, blood comes. So the blood would have entered the hole. The Eini Nikr, you wouldn't be able to tell from the outside because the blood is red like the color of the membrane. Abul Kruma Pnimi Lovanu, the inner membrane is white. The Tipa is Dam Nikeresboy. So if you're looking at the inner lining of the veshet, if there was a red speckle on it, it would be an indication that it was punctured. So Zog to Gemara, he can't be biting the veshet. So what should you do? So Rabbi Yosef, the son of Rabbah, came to the rescue. Amar le Rabbi Yosef Barei, this is what you should do. Nivde kela kana. The kana you could check from the outside, so check that. V'nishchete lekana, and check the kana, it's a bird. So if you check the kana, you checked it one timin, v'lichsheri. Now the bird had a kosher shchita. Now that the animal is shechted, v'hadar lebchul veshet, and then you could turn the veshet inside out, v'liv the can to be vaydik. What did Rava say? Amar Rava chacham Yosef Bari, it switched here from this is Rava talking. Rava said veshet and lebdika b'chutz, but the story happened to Rava. The geese came to Rava. So Rava said, "Oh, my son Yosef is a smart guy. The Travis, he knows his business well in Travis. Rabbi Yochanan." Rashi has a discussion if it's Rabbi Yochanan who is a baki in Travis, or if Rabbi Yochanan who is a baki b'cholatar kula. Alma, what you see clearly is echad Omer oi hai oi hai. You clearly see that it was accepted to shech the veshet, to shech the kana as well. Zok Rashi v'niv the kela kana, shakana nivdak mi b'chutz. You can easily examine the kana from its exterior, levisha ena nitraf el b'roiv, because it will not become treifa. Only if there's a big gaping hole, that would be easy to see. V'hader nishchelei lekana, then shech the kana v'ashchita ksher b'shemen echad, because we're paskening like Rav Nachman. The achach yitlo veshet kulei, then you could completely remove the veshet, v'yakrumin alechi, completely dislodge it, v'yafchu, and turn it inside out, v'yivdechu, and you could check it. So our maskana is, in a bird, you only have to check one siman, and that siman is either the kana or the veshet. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Achi Yishchat is Avrid. Amr Abchista. Why? Since it's roasted sometimes in one big piece, right? Remember when you used to go into Pearls, they had that big roaster behind the cashier. Remember that? There were full chickens roasting, spinning around on that rotisserie. Aval behema, but the behema, even the manatcha ever, since you're cutting it into pieces, it will be much easier for it to release its dam, and therefore loitzar. Zok Gemara, remember the time of Rabbi Yehuda mishum damu. You're telling me the reason why Rabbi Yehuda requires the severing of the arteries is because we're afraid of dam that's going to be nivla in the oif. But Tanan we learned, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Ad sheyishchot es avridin. If it's just about letting out the blood, why do they have to be shechted? You just need to puncture them. But you see, Rabbi Yehuda requires a shechita on the avridin. Zok the Gemara, no. Ema ad sheyinakev es avridin. Umay achi yishchot. What does it mean achi yishchot is avridin? If it just means you have to puncture them, it's achi yinkov b'shash shchita. You can't wait 3 days and then cut the vridin. The vridin have to be cut b'shash the shchita. Why is it Rashi? Shadam cham v'yoytze. That's when the blood is still warm and pumping. That'll allow the animal to get rid of all its blood. Tashma vridin b'shchita divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Once again, it says the vridin require shchita. No, aim of reading Tzarech Lenakvan B'Shashchita Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, as we just said. Tashma, Amalei Rabbi Yehuda. They told Rabbi Yehuda, Me'acha Shaloi Huzkaru Avridin Ella Lahaytimehem Dam. About the only purpose that you're telling me why the vridin have to be punctured is to release the blood from them. So why do you say shchita? Mali b'shchita, mali shaloi b'shchita. From the response that was given to Rabbi Yehuda, it's clear that they understood that Rabbi Yehuda said that the vridin have to be shechted. Michlal Rabbi Yehuda savar b'shchita. Zok the Gemara, that's not how you should understand this conversation. Rather, hachi k'amila. Mali l'nokvan b'shash shchita, mali l'nokvan shaloi b'shash shchita. If it's all about removing the blood, they challenge Rabbi Yehuda, why do you have to why do you have to shecht the arteries? Why do you have to puncture the arteries? B'shas the shchita, puncture them anytime, and it will release the blood. But who savar b'shas shchita asadam? During the shchita, that's when the dam will be extracted much easier from the vridin, the chayim, because they're still warm. Shaloi b'shas shchita loyasidam the koyer, because at that point the animal had cooled off already, and the blood will not flow as easily. So the maskana is, of course, that Rabbi Yehuda holds that although the vridin have to be severed, they don't have to be severed through a shchita. Only b'shas the shchita. Boy Rabbi Yirmiyah, vridin or Rabbi Yehuda, what happens if shaha bahen, daras bahen, mahu? What if you did one of the psulei shchita on the vridin? Obviously, they didn't hear the Gemara that we just learned. As Rashi says, shchita mamish. Boy Rabbi Yehuda, Oiloi. Rabbi Yirmiyah, Oiloi, Shemin Olei, Ha, Rav Chisda. So this is a conversation that happened in a different place at a different time. Amalei Ahu Saba, the El Tadiyid said, usually it refers to Eliyahu Navi. Hachi Amar Rabbi Lozer, this is what Rabbi Lozer said. But Amri Law, there are those who related the story as follows. Amalei Ahu Saba, Rabbi Lozer, Hachi Amar Rabbi Yochanan, this is what Rabbi Yochanan said, Minakvan Bekoitz Ben Kisherin. It's enough just to puncture them even with a thorn, and it will be kosher. Tanya Kabal Seid Rab Chisda, Shachat Shnei Chatzoi Simonin Ba'if is going to be possible. Ve'ein tzarich lamer bebehema. Rabbi Yehuda Omer ba'oif ad sheyishchot es haveshet ve'es havridin. So you have a raya that Rabbi Yehuda holds that the vridin is only by oif. You don't have a raya, you don't have shchita. You have a raya, it's only by oif. Now we have a very fascinating machlokes. Very fascinating machlokes. Chatzi echad ba'oif is possible. Now the question is, what if you shechted exactly half of a siman, not roiv? Would that be good enough? Itmar Rav Omar mechta al mechta karoiv. If you cut exactly half of the siman, that's good enough. It would be a kosher shchita. Rav Kahana Omar mechta al mechta ein a karoiv, which is how we Papashtus understood it. Rav Omar mechta al mechta karoiv hachi Omar le'rachman el Moshe. You know what the Rebbeinu Shalom told Moshe when he instructed him on shchita? He said, "Lois shayir ruba." Make sure that there's not roiv of the simin that was not severed. So if you could do exactly half, you're going to be doing okay. Rav Kahana says, "Mechta al mechta eina karoiv," because hachi Amar le'rachman el Moshe shechait ruba, shecht half. So why don't we ask Moshe? I guess we don't remember anymore. So Zok the Gemara Tanan. Chatzi echad ba'oif, the echad b'chatzi b'behema. It's our Mishnah. Shchitas psula. So this is a klorai. You got to shecht right. If you're going to say mechza al mechza is karoiv, am I possible? If you hold like Rav, why would this be possible? Ha'avid le Rav. L'maisa mechza mechza is karoiv. He did check right. Zakt Gemara, that Mishnah, our Mishnah is only passing midirabanan dilma lo asil mevet palga. If you're going to be so mitzumtum and only cut exactly half, if you make a mistake on a fraction of a millimeter, you have a tray for the animal, and therefore the Mishnah says that you have to shaft to right. So it would be nicker. Amrav Kadina, Toshma, Cholkoi l'shnayim vein shavin. The halacha is if you have a kli cheres and it becomes tamei, the only way to get rid of the tumah is to break it. Now you don't have to break it into 1,000 pieces, as long as each piece is less than half of the full volume of the keli. Here talking about a tanner, but it's a kli cheres, it will be tahor. Well, what if you were able to cut it exactly in the middle? Right, that happens every year when we try to do yachats.
Well, it's a whole avoided. I see.
So what about chalkin? There's only once that I have to break off another piece. Usually it's always, it's always a bigger one. That's part of the nisim of Pesach night. It's a night full of nisim. So one of the nisim is that your matzah always breaks. That it will be easy to tell which one is the taller half. So Zok to Gemara. Is it possible that while we were learning this shut off and it came on again? Seems like it did. Okay, so Zok to Gemara. So Chalkul is main shavin shneim tamein. You know why? Lefisha efshir latamtam. Because it's impossible to cut it perfectly in half. So therefore, one of them is for sure the bigger half. Since you can't tell, they're both considered the bigger half, and they're both going to be tummy. Let's see Rashi. She'efshir latamtam. She'yim mechavanim. Elavadai bechad minayu ikaruba. The problem is v'lo yadina b'hai minayu. Hilchach le'sol katumim minayu. We treat both halves of the oven like they're tummy. Zok to Gemara, ha efshel tzamtzem. It's tired. So it's mashma that if you could have cut it exactly 50-50, this tanner would have been tahar. Am I tired? But why would you say it's tahar? Zil hacha ikaruba. If you say half is like roiv, so then on this half you have roiv, and zil hacha ikaruba. So oibazoi, according to Rav, who says half is considered roiv, how is this tanner mutter, even if it was possible at something that if it should be exactly 50-50? Zok to Gemara, Amar Papa, no. Trei roivi v'chad mona leka, the high ruba, high miuta. Avalinian shchita, you're only looking at one half. You're not looking at the other half. You're not comparing the two halves. Avalinian shchita lehuska roiv ela bechaticha. We're focused on was the chaticha roiv or not. The chikarina palga roiv. When we're calling half of the siman, the part that you severed, if we refer to that as roiv, leka de makashlei. There's nothing that's contradicting it. The high palga the koi loy mikri roiv shalei. We won't call that a roiv shalei. But the problem is with the keli, there's two halves over here, so you can't make that distinction. So it seems like it's like a little bit of a fuzzy logic situation.
By the oven?
With the oven, if you cut two in half, even if you can cut exactly 50-50, how can you call one roiv? They'll both be roiv, right?
Or not.
But if you're looking at both halves, which is what we're doing, we're looking at both halves. You can't have both halves can't be roiv. That's correct, because you have both halves here and I'm paskening on each one. But by the shechita, I'm only looking at the half that I'm cutting. So there I can say it's roiv because I'm not looking at the other half. So I don't know that the svara. The svara is when you're paskening with roiv, it's not so scientific, right? Because the same chati could be roiv here if there's no obvious contradiction to it. Tashma shakat chati gageres the shahaba. What if you cut hata gageres? The brayso that we've been discussing a moment ago. The shahaba kedei shchita acheres, and you paused for 5 minutes or so, and then the gomra. The halach is shchitasek ksera. The gomra is a Rashi. At this point, we're assuming the behema koi. We're talking about a behema. The boy roiv shnayim. you need to shecht roiv of 2 simanim, umay gomra l'shchita. So you shechted half, and then you finish the shchita. The amrit mechtal mechta karoiv. If you hold like Rav that the mechtal mechtas karoiv, Dr. Rashi, vi mechta karoiv, even the shah b'chatzi ozlo la shchita. The shchita is finished. It'll be like an injury. The itfer Allah b'ptukas hagageres, and it should be puzzle. It must be that half, having severed half, is not karayv. Psukas hagageres beruba beinam. So therefore, if you to here you can't consider it a shchita. Why? Because you didn't cut the veshet yet. You only cut half the kana. So if you cut half the kana, if that's considered roiv, then there's a pause between shechting the kana and shechting the veshet. So it can't be that if it's a meat and if half is not considered a roiv, then we're good. If it's not a treifa, it's only half of the kana was damaged. And when you come back and cut the rest of the kana and the veshet, you did a proper shchita. But if you hold, when you cut half the kana, it's cut already, well, if it was a bird, memela, but it's a behema, and therefore you didn't do the veshet on time. Sorry? A damaged kana is not an avela. If you did the full shchita, it would become an avela. It would become an avela, of course. So if it was treifa already. Zok Gemara, no, it would have been avela, because if you shech the treifa, it's matar to be the avela. So Zok Misarish behema, your whole kash is only based on the fact that we're talking about a behema here. Maybe we're talking about oif, loy boif, and if we're talking about oif, we don't have a problem because we're manashech. If mechta is karoiv, then the first action he took was a shchita. Ha'avid le'ruba. The first cut was 50-50, which means, according to Rav, was a kosher shchita. And he mechta ain't karoiv, no problem. Then the first cut was nothing, and the whole shchita was by the second cut. Okay, we'll stop here, Bezem, and we'll mamshech tomorrow.
Let me see.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that the layout of the veshet and the corner are totally different than an animal.